Happy holidays, everybody. It's Christmas, Gary. It is really cold out, so I've got a couple hours. I was doing some research, and I wanted to do a little bit of... Hey, everybody. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. It's the holiday cheer Christmas Squatchin' edition with Bigfooter Gary. It is super cold out today. Gage and I will be doing a hike later, but I haven't seen any tracks or sign of anything out in the woods for at least 3 weeks. So pretty bored. But what I wanted to do is, in the vein of showing you guys some of the research and things that I look at, again, local accounts. So I found a couple accounts that actually have evidence, and the first one we're going to look at, I'm going to read you guys the BFRO account from here in Ontario, and again, it's Algonquin Park, which we've talked about before, which is a provincial, well, it's not a provincial park, it's federal protected land, okay? There's many lakes in there, many rules when you go into Algonquin, no motorized vehicles, no engines, no bottles of beer, cans only, I think. So lots of rules, really good fishing, really secluded area. And so I want to read you guys an account that was reported in 2020, August. We'll go through the account, and he actually has a file, an audio file that we can check out, because this is in regards to screaming in the woods, and as well as other stuff. So let's jump into this first one, and then we'll move on to the next one. So this report is listed as Class B, and this fellow's other report from 2008 is also listed as Class B. So I want to give you guys the BFRO definition of a Class B encounter. Class B, incidents where a possible Sasquatch was observed at a great distance or in poor lighting conditions, and incidents in any other circumstance that did not afford a clear view of the subject are considered Class B reports. Class B reports are not considered less credible or less important than Class A reports. Both types are deemed credible enough by the BFRO to show to the public. Since we've gone through that, let's just read the definition of Class A as well. Class A reports involve clear sightings in a circumstance where misinterpretations or misidentifications of any other animal can be ruled out with greater confidence. For example, there are several footprint cases that are very well documented. These are considered Class A reports because misidentification of common animals can be confidently ruled out. Thus, the potential for misinterpretation is very low. That's Class A. So this is BFRO report 65894, and these are found under Ontario. So obviously I'm in Canada, you'd have to look that up to find. Location details, it gives the actual location, latitude, longitude, 45 degrees, Spectacle Lake Road off of Highway 60. So Highway 60, I'm very familiar with. I actually use that highway to go down south. I used to live in a town 4 hours south of here, Peterborough. So I know exactly this area. And I guess if you come far enough north, it's not that far. Algonquin Park is only about 40 minutes from my house, the northern side of it. This occurred in the southern part of Algonquin Park. So nearest town is Madawaska Valley, Renfrew County. Nearest road is Spectacle Lake Road. Observed. I just got back from a region known as Madawaska Valley in Renfrew County, about 3 hours north of me, Whitby. It is located on the southern edge of Algonquin Park. Several reports have come out of that park, including an encounter I had back in 2008. It was a Class B experience while camping with 3 of my friends in that park. Rock throwing, odor, and feces found. I'm always really leery, guys, if somebody has more than one Bigfoot encounter, but let's just see what he has to say. This is the newest one from 2020, okay? My family and I rented a cottage this week on a small private lake called Spectacle Lake. The cottage is surrounded by forest, and the region has good population of moose, deer, wolf, beaver, and bear. On Monday, July 27th, when we arrived at 1500 hours, we got unpacked and got settled in for the afternoon. At 1800 hours, we had a nice dinner and then sat around a big bonfire at approximately 2000 hours. At about 2200 hours, this guy's jumping around in hours a lot, so nothing happened until 10 o'clock at night. While sitting and talking around the fire, I heard something across the lake in the distance. I told everyone to be quiet because I could hear something above the sound of our fire. I then heard these series of howls come from across the lake. The distance across the lake is about 500 meters. The area has thick forest with cliffs in the background. The howls seem to come well beyond the distance across the lake and even beyond the cliffs beyond the tree line. I would estimate the cliffs to be approximately 150 meters high. There are no cottages directly across the lake. There are 3 small cottages at a distance to the north of us. However, no one was at those cottages during the week. Having heard those kinds of sounds before, I figured it was a Sasquatch, but no one else in my group has experienced this before. Naturally, they were all taken aback and quite excited by this. Everyone agreed the howls did not sound like wolves, coyotes, loons, deer, moose, or any other kind of animal we are familiar with. These howls went on intermittently for about a half hour, and each time it happened, there were about 3 or 4 howls. About midnight, the fire was dying down and we all headed into the cottage for the night. But just before going in, we heard a large branch break close by. I would estimate about 20 feet from the cottage in the tree line, and it was a clear, distinct crack of a small tree limb. I would estimate about 1 inch or more. Again, I know what this was, having experienced this many times. Right, so again, this is what I say about being vigilant and wary of these guys. Something breaks a stick in the bush and he knows exactly what it is, right? Don't let my negativity bring you guys down. This is just how I look at these things when I read these reports, okay? So if you are Matt Moneymaker and you find every sound in the bush to be Bigfoot, okay, but you guys know if you watch my channel, that's not me. Just because this guy hears something break and he says, I know what that was, chances are he had no clue what that was. So I tried to peer into the tree line to see if I could see anything. I heard nothing else and saw nothing. I didn't want to shine flashlight because I know this might end the activity for the night. So I went inside of the cottage. We all went to bed shortly afterwards. At 3:30 hours, I looked the time immediately. Something hit or threw something at the cottage very hard. It shook the cottage and woke all of us up. Now that is strange. Keep in mind, this is a fairly large cottage that is 2 stories tall with a basement walkout and sleeps all 8 of us. I know what was happening and got up to look around. I wanted to rule out any of the kids or dogs possibly walking around and maybe knocking something off of a shelf in the dark. So I walked all around the house from top to bottom. Everyone, including the dogs, were in their beds. The dogs never moved from their spots, even though I know they heard and felt the bang. I looked outside and saw nothing in the pitch darkness, so I went back to bed. I lay there awake and listened for any other activity. Then about a half hour later, I could hear something mumbling or grumbling outside the open window. That's the best way I can describe it. It was close to my window, but I still couldn't see anything when I looked out. I still do not want to shine a light, hoping for more activity. At 4:15 hours, something gave a long, hard scrape along the outside of the cottage. Then nothing. In the morning at 6:30 hours, I woke up and checked the outside perimeter of the cottage and the surrounding area. The ground is hard and all around the cottage, so I found no imprints. I went inside the tree line, but still could not find definite prints. I could see no handprints or signs of damage on the outside walls of the cottage. I could not find the tree break. I could not see any rocks or sticks lying close to the cottage that could have been thrown at the cottage. I found no physical signs of the scrape either. The next night, Tuesday, July 28th, while sitting by our bonfire again, we heard the same screams and howls from across the lake. This would occur off and on until about 5 a.m. The recording I took from my bedroom in the middle of the night at 2:30 a.m. Either put your computer speakers on or listen close to your phone when listening. There are 4 howls heard, and the last one is the loudest and clearest. There was no more activity of any kind on Wednesday or Thursday, but I heard those screams and howls again on Friday, July 31st, during the night. Then he gives the coordinates, the temperature 21 degrees Celsius, right up to 25 degrees Celsius on the last evening they were there. Also noticed, we have a large dog, Bouvier, who constantly cried and wanted to keep going inside the cottage while we were all sitting by the fire. He has never done that before. Very uncharacteristic of him. Other witnesses? There were 8 witnesses in total. The area itself is heavily forested on all sides for hundreds of miles. This is all Canadian Shield type of landscape around the water's edge. It is a very hilly region in the Madawaska Valley with tall visible rock cliffs and some muskeg swamps. Wildlife is abundant such as bear, wolves, coyote, deer, moose, beaver, other small game, and plenty of fish. The surrounding population in Renfrew is just over 88,000 spread sparsely over 7,419,000 kilometers square. Welcome to Canada! The lake, again, is Spectacle Lake. Follow-up investigation reported by BFRO investigator Matthew Moneymaker. Here we go! Say his name and he shall appear. The sound recording is not good enough to be used for playback blasting in the field. The howls are faint, but the relevant characteristics can be heard if you crank up the volume while wearing headphones. So we're going to play that and see what it sounds like, and I will actually use my software editing stuff to pump up the volume for you guys so we can get a better listen to it. When you listen to the recording, you will hear what sounds like breathing or a sleeping person. That's not the Sasquatch. That is actually a person sleeping in the room. Keep listening closely and you will hear the Sasquatch howling outside in the distance. Okay, let's jump to that right now and give it a listen. Okay guys, so I had to boost that audio clip 36 decibels, which required me to boost it to full maximum, render out the clip, boost it again to full maximum, render out the clip, and this is the 3rd iteration. And very faintly in the background, you can now hear the howling that was recorded. I'll let you guys make up your mind as to what you think it was, but I'm going to tell you what I think it was, and it sounds an awful lot like a wolf. Looking at the reports here, there are 2 reports from 2008. One is a Class A, one is a Class B, so we have to assume that this other one that I'm going to take a look at right now is from the same person who the report we just looked at. This second report is 25229, Class B, submitted December 29th, 2008. Possible vocalizations heard 10 miles southeast of Arden. So the season was winter, it was in December, Ontario, Canada. Unable to determine how to describe the location as far as directions are concerned, it is roughly 10 miles southeast of Arden on an ATV accessible only trail system. Nearest road, 10 miles away. It doesn't say. Observed. In the not too distant past, I had submitted a series of photos including footprints in the snow, twisted together trees, and shredded tree bark. Oh, so here we go. Now when we look at this report from this guy, he's had a 3rd incident that he's sent in photos. So this guy has a lifelong affiliation with Bigfoot. We're going to finish this report because we started it, but again, credibility for me drops each time these people talk about, you know, repeatedly seeing and hearing these things, because billions of us have never seen these things once, right? So, but let's finish the report anyway. I just wanted to say thank you to all that have taken the time to examine my findings and help me determine the results. I have a new finding which I will leave up to you to determine. Your expertise would be appreciated regarding this incident. So on to my point of interest. This past summer, my friend and I were hiking through the forest. We were doing some land scouting when we had found ourselves staring at a small ravine which was at the base of a pond. The ravine was also the pond's drain, which ran into a smaller pond on a lower land level. We had noticed the highest amount of bear activity we've ever seen in our location, so we were on higher alert for both visual and sound evidence of bears. After reaching this ravine, we began to discuss potential trail opportunities for our ATVs, when we were abruptly stopped in our words to a single but very deep semi-growl. This growl was well beyond that of anything I have ever heard. It had enough depth to it that one could almost feel it in the center of their chest. I certainly did anyway. My first reaction was letting out this little uh-oh, I think I just heard a bear. It wasn't until well after the sound and our rapid departure that I started to think about what I had heard. This was the same weekend I had found a series of small trees twisted together a short distance away from our camp. I had sent you some photos of these trees. I believe this all happened this year in either late June or early July. At any rate, the forest was in full bloom and the temperatures were quite warm. I believe it was about 11 a.m. when we were out, because I do recall we wandered off a little bit before the peak heat hours had arrived. Like before, it was only one sound, somewhat off in the distance and sounded like a woo, but more like the tone of a lady doing it. It heightened to just a second after it started and tapered off. It lasted for, I would say, possibly 4 or 5 seconds long. My friend came in and asked if I had heard this. I said, yeah. Where was it? Where was it? He said, way off to the south of us. It was certainly not a common sound for what we were used to hearing out there. So a minute ago he described it as a growl, but a woo, which is a high-pitched female sound he's saying, is not a growl. So which one was it? I'm confused. He used to raise owls, and we have heard several great gray owls out there all year long, but it wasn't that. I asked him if he had any idea, and he said no. We know it wasn't wolf or coyote. We are very familiar with that, and there isn't too much wildlife out there in the winter that roams around the area anyway from our experience. We are quite baffled, so I thought I would ask you for a more experienced opinion. One other thought. If I ever come across tracks in the winter again, are there any suggestions for casting them in snow? I recall one of your fellow members suggested that snow photos of footprints revealed a bipedal animal, but possibly a small or young one. If I had have thought of it before taking the photos, I would have had a tape measure to show how long the strides were. Roughly 14 inches of snow on the ground that day. It may have been a little more accurate for the examiner to determine the details of the animal's size. All I can do is offer a vague description of the stride. With me being 5'6" and stretching my legs as far as I could, I almost had the crotch of my pants touching the snow to go from the toe of the one print to the heel of the other on the same side leg. Thanks for any input you can offer and hopefully help us figure out what we had heard. So he's great at measuring stuff as well. 5'6", stretched out, what's that? Maybe 3.5, 4 feet between, it could be a big range there, right? Not very accurate reporting. Other witnesses. 2 witnesses, myself and one other. I was paying attention to a movie while my friend was outside to use the washroom. I want to know, was it number 1 or number 2? That's important. He could have been grunting. He could have been straining on the toilet. That's what this guy heard. Keep it serious, Gary. Keep it serious. It's frustrating to a point. You know, we try to keep this serious. I try to be a researcher myself, but the stuff that gets submitted, I'm not pre-reading these. Maybe it's funnier if I don't pre-read these, because if I had pre-read this, I'd be like, nah, I'm not sharing this on my channel. You guys let me know what you think below. Should we just read these together and we'll analyze them and break them apart as we do it, like pretty much live? Because if I pre-read these, I'm gonna be like, no way am I sharing that on my channel. Let me know in the comments below. Other stories. Yes, we had heard a different sound back in the later part of June this past summer. The different sound was very deep and throaty, but not aggressively loud, but similar. It was only made once. There were no repeated sounds to follow. A couple of years prior to this, we had found footprints in the snow and some shredded bark on standing trees. The photos were sent here to the BFRO. So there's a clue, guys. If we go back a couple of years and look at these other cases, maybe I can find those photos to show you guys as well. The photos were sent here with results leaning towards them as being bipedal. Additionally, there have been small trees twisted together in various places, as well as a pile of pine branches broken off at the south side of a pine tree and stacked neatly on one of our trails. The pine tree also revealed that there were no claw marks from a bear on the bark, and that this has happened in the middle of January of 2007. So let's look at 2007 reports and see if I can find these photos. This case was followed up by investigator Christopher Lau. I spoke to the witness at length on January 11th, 2009. The witness explained and described some of the vocalizations he and a friend had been hearing at their camp, which is approximately 10 miles southeast of Arden. It is a remote camp which can only be accessed through ATV trails. The witness described two possible vocalizations heard in the past year. The first occurred in early July 2008 when the witness and a friend were hiking through the bush looking for new areas to trek through with ATVs. The two witnesses were very careful as they hiked through the bush, cautious of bears, when they heard a deep growl coming from below them. They stopped to look at each other and got out of the area. The two did not think about it being a Sasquatch at first, but after second vocalization, it made them think twice about what they heard earlier that summer. The latest vocalization was heard on December 26, 2008. The same two witnesses were in their cabin watching the movie when they heard a long, deep woo. Okay, so I was confused earlier when I read that. Two separate vocalizations we're talking about here. The woo and the growl, two separate things. There might even been something third coming from the guy in the outhouse. We have yet to determine that. Okay guys, so looking here at the report listings, there is a 2007 case listed as Class B, and it says possible tracks found crossing a dirt road near Hilton Beach, but it says June. And when I click on that account and read it, there are no photos. And there's nothing listed here that I can see from 2007. All right, guys, I think I'm on to something here. Let me know if you guys are interested in reading these actual BFRO cases, going through them. And there are other sites that have other reports. We can go through those as well. And I actually find it kind of funny, you know, some of the things they say, they point out, or they don't measure. It doesn't mean anything to anyone if you don't have photographs, if you don't have measurements, you know, some kind of scientific proof. Again, it's just a story in my opinion, but you guys, again, can let me know what you think about that, and is it worth looking at this stuff? And in the meantime, guys, I want everybody to have super happy holidays, enjoy your family and friends, just relax over the next couple weeks, because it's going to be a busy year coming up. So that's what I'm going to do, is relax, enjoy the family, and Christmas and the holidays. Might have a peppermint drink, maybe, maybe not. Hot chocolate? Hot chocolate only. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you in the next adventure.